Okay. Hi, everybody. So we're here today for the invasive versus native plants session with our Cochrane Master Gardener. My name is Louise, if for those of you who don't know me. I am the branch head of the CM Shields South Porcupine Library and founder of the Seed Library, which is now 5 years old, which is pretty exciting. Just a quick Zoom etiquette here. We want this to be, feel free to chat. We want you to be able to ask questions. Catherine is very good with wanting a conversation in these sessions. So keep that in mind if you have any questions or comments to be made. There's always the reactions at the bottom of your screen or at the top, depending on your device. And this event is being recorded. So Catherine has been kind of our in-house Cochrane Master Gardener and has been conducting a lot of our programming. After many years as a home gardener and years of study, Catherine achieved her Master Gardener of Ontario accreditation just a few years ago, but she's been working with us for a little longer than that. So she's always pleased to research and present gardening information to any group who shares her interest. She's also part of Porcupine Horticultural Society and the Bee City Timmins, and she's also quite the local artist. So keep her in mind if ever you have any questions. Feel free to send them to me. I can ask her, or you can always join the Porcupine Horticultural Society as well. So let's get Catherine going on this one. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and off to you, my dear.
Okay, and thank you very much. It's nice of you all to come and listen and add in your comments and knowledge as you can. I keep hearing
lots of dings, eh?
Yeah, ding ding. Yeah, I feel like I should answer the door. The title is slightly, I guess, misleading. I shouldn't say I have a hidden agenda, but in my own gardening, I guess for a couple years now, I've really been trying to change my garden over from being, well, I guess, pretty and exotic and loving to have strange plants. And now I'm really working more towards making a native plant garden, not entirely, but a lot. But I'm very interested in trying to bring birds and butterflies and bees and to our garden, and little animals and things, whatever will come into a natural space. And of course, to do that, you have to start liking bugs. And really, I'm getting very interested in large and plant. Instead of hating them now, I'm learning them. And this may sound really odd, but I think it's a way that we need to be going and trying to help our planet. And we can do these that makes sense. It gives me hope, because when I see what's going on in the world, as far as the environment goes, it seems so slow that the changes happen. Change. And so that's sort of, I guess, the bottom line of what I'm thinking or trying to, I hope comes across with the plants that we're looking at, and we'll see. Anyway, I guess I'd like to go to, Louise is controlling my presentation, so, but we get along well. So Louise, if you can start that. We haven't argued yet, even though she has the ultimate control. Okay. Mine is.
Are you seeing it?
I don't know if I'm seeing what everyone else is. I'm there. Okay. I don't know if people are actually seeing I'm only seeing a little bit of the top of it.
Does everybody see the
but I can't move
shared space?
Um,
Can you see the shared
I'm
space?
seeing about half a way down the first photos.
Is that better?
So it didn't move.
No?
Can we ask other people if they're seeing it? There,
Let me
that's
see.
better.
Oh, was it okay then?
Yeah, pretty well.
Okay, just took a little hiccup there in the timing.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, because we can move it up then. Okay. When we're seeing, well, for instance, if you see the movie Dune, there's not a plant in sight anywhere. And those of us who grow plants know that plant that's going to die anyway. That planet doesn't have a chance. But native is essential to us, living, to life on our planet, because plants are the only thing that can create food. They change sunlight into food, and that starts off the food chain. And usually we don't even think about that, but they're sort of right at the bottom, and their photosynthesis is the start of food life. And so we should really be happy that we are gardeners, and we're trying to contribute to that. And just the terminology, you're moving it, right?
Yeah, I moved it because I do notice that there's a couple people that can't see it.
Okay,
Can't
I think now it's good.
partial on the screen is visible. Okay, so I think it might have been just because I didn't have the full page. So I just put the full page. I hope
Okay.
everybody can see it now.
Yeah, now it's centered on mine anyway.
Okay.
Okay. We'll have a very smooth flow very shortly. The invasive plant, the term invasive plants is applied to non-native plants, which have been brought in because for various reasons. Often a lot of plants were brought by early settlers because they either wanted to be able to eat them, or they wanted to bring them to help with homesickness that they anticipated. And some have come by accident, via boats and been on cargo and things. And then we have this great tendency to love exotic things that we don't have. So we import them, and then sometimes they get away on us. So the idea of an invasive plant means a non-native plant that has really overgrown itself and escaped our cultivation, I guess, and we were not able to control it. And I started off with a couple pictures. Probably most people know goutweed, and some people battle with it, and some people like it. It's been sold as a ground cover for a long time, and people trade it around. The thing is, once you've got it, you can't get rid of it, and it crowds out other things that you might like. And it gets white flowers, and insects will go after it, but it's not as good a plant. And the dandelions, which again, that the insects and bees go after dandelions, but it's a plant that lots of us have learned to hate. And it's not a native plant. It's entirely edible, so it's hard to really make as great a case against it. I think almost the worst part about dandelions is that we jump to using pesticides to control it. So then we're putting those poisons out there. So if we could just live with it, because it's very hard to get rid of. And, we try to keep a little space without dandelions. Probably some of us do, not everybody. So those are, things that we would call invasive. And I don't want my talk to be sort of like a rant against non-native plants, because Non-native plants do not generally destroy an ecosystem unless they become invasive, and then they will go out there and push everything else out. Some of our native plants will do that too if they find a good spot and they just grow like mad and take over. But generally, native and non-native can exist together and do okay. But through studies, it's been found that non-natives don't contribute as much as native plants to the life of the insects and the non-plant life that lives in your garden or lives in nature. And because our bugs, for instance, have evolved along with the plants, and that takes millions of years. So it's not, things don't, evolution isn't quick. So it takes a long time, and it's better for nature if we can grow at least some native plants in our gardens. We're still being sold non-natives, and sometimes that's good and sometimes it's not. Invasive ones that we get at the bottom of the page, there's two kinds of mint, and I'm growing both of those because I use them. And you can grow mint very successfully if you've tried it. And it will do its best to get away, but you can do things to curtail it, like people plant it in, like bury a pot and put it in that. But I have it between my house and the neighbors, and it's a spot that they don't use at all. So it's my place to grow the mint, and it's curtailed by the foundations, and it really fills in that spot.
And it keeps the bugs away.
Yeah, I like it really well. And I know people will grow this as a ground cover in an area where they don't mind it expanding. And my two varieties just grow together, but I can tell them apart. And you can see on the pictures here that it's quite easy to tell them apart. Mm-hmm. Spearmint grows a little taller too. Mm. Okay, the next, we have lots of pretty pictures. Yeah. So Lamium is also sold as a ground cover, and it's in the mint family. And that one, if you innocently plant it where you'd like some ground cover, it'll sure do the job. Mm-hmm. and go probably further than you want. But it's a nice smelly one too, a nice aroma. Lily of the Valley, which I planted it because I wanted it, and then I had to try to get it out. And also it's poisonous, which I didn't know when I planted it. And that's pretty well why I wanted to take it out, because I had small grandchildren, and they wanted to pick it. And so I thought, that's no good. So then Caragana, I don't know if you're familiar with that. This is, I don't see it being invasive here so much, but further south, apparently it is. It's used for hedges a great deal, at least in our area. I see lots and lots of hedges, and they're not going anywhere. And the nice thing about, I'll tell you the good things about these invasive shrubs too. This one, because it's in the pea family, it self-fertilizes. Because to my shame, I have a Caragana hedge, but it's been out there for 30 some years. And I was quite innocent when I planted it. I bought all the plants from a nursery, and it's been a great hedge. I'm sure that the way it gets to be invasive is if the birds take the little peas that come on it, because it gets a pod. Those flowers will develop into pods. And I'm sure those can be carried away and planted, but I've never seen this as a problem in the wild around here. So I don't know, it grows well for me. Anyway, and periwinkles, which are beautiful little plants, but again, they'll grow out in runners, and They crowd out other things. But I'm going to suggest, oh, well, let's go on to the next one. Oh, just the bottom. Can you move it up a little bit, Louise?
Yeah. I just did. I think there's a little bit of a lag there. Do you see the non-native plants in the middle now?
Yep.
Charlie? Okay.
Yeah. I'm getting a sign on mine that says my internet connection is unstable, which is a little awkward.
Yeah,
Okay.
You came in and out earlier, but it's back and it's good right now.
Okay. Creeping Charlie, which again, it's pretty, but it's so hard to get out of your garden if you ever get it in. It seeds like crazy. It runs under the ground. It just really wants to have its way. And probably some of you are familiar with that. It's in the boxes at our church gardens. And I keep saying, don't anybody take any of that earth home because you're going to be so sorry. And people keep pulling it out. I don't know if it was in the earth we bought or how we got it there, but all the gardens are polluted with it. And we're trying to grow vegetables there. The hawkweed or devil's paintbrush, which comes in yellow as well. It grows like a little rosette on the ground, and it will be your whole lawn if you don't mind. So I don't know. I try to get that one out of our yard and I rake it, and you can catch the little runners, and if it's had a nice rain or a soak, it'll pull up quite a few of them. But I guess as I said with previously there, we're so tempted to use some kind of weed killers, broadleaf weed killers, and then we're creating other problems in nature and just everywhere. Can we see some more, Louise? Thank you. See, she's so good. The Canada thistle, which is I'm having a battle with in my yard. And well, it's coming from with beyond our yard, and it's just really hard to stop. And I've read that its roots can go down 8 feet. So that, and I don't have burrs here, but if you have pets, there are lots of burrs out there in nature, and they come home when we had a cat, she'd come home and she'd let me take that out. But I think depending on how long the pet's hair is, that can be quite a problem, or on people, your pant legs and stuff. The Canada thistle is the only one that's really tempted me to use a poison. And I got Roundup, and I use a paintbrush, and I've got, the nice long handled artist paintbrushes, like very fine, so I can paint just the leaves on the thing, because with that kind of root, and the thing is, it's coming up in many places from the same root system. So it's my failure, but that takes care of them. And
so you just put them on the leaves, Catherine?
Yes.
Okay.
I've tried cutting them off at ground level or just below with scissors. And I've also been told and read that if you just pull them off or don't cut them cleanly, where you've cut, they'll divide and you'll get 2.
So you're propagating it now.
Yeah. And you have to, if you have all of like my thistles, part of them, they're coming from somebody else's yard. So that's my problem, because I can't take them out of their yard, and they don't care. Mm-hmm. But I can't, if you can cut them all off at ground level and keep doing that, eventually you'll starve the roots. So that would work. But I've sort of resorted to using my paintbrush, and because then that carries it back to the root, and you can get rid of a lot of it. So I guess it's better than spraying. I don't hit anything else. So anyway, the next bit is special, like keystone plants that you can grow that will really help support pollinators. And I've separated them out so that we're looking at ground covers, and then we're going to look at taller plants and like sort of go through the plants by height. And these are pretty well plants you can find in the wild around here. I'm really focusing on plants that grow around Timmins, basically, because that's where I live. And I know I can see a friend in Sudbury on the screen there, Linda. And she's a master gardener in Sudbury. Anyway, so she'll let me know when I go astray. Bunchberry, which is very nice, and it grows those little red berries in a while. And that's really all over in a lot of our forests here. And wild ginger. I've been growing. Yeah, this is a cultivar. It's not the natural, I guess, original one has just solid green leaves, but they're shaped like that. And it makes this beautiful, about, I guess, 6 inches high. And it spreads quite nicely. And it gets little blue flowers that look like forget-me-not flowers, and they're held up above the plant. And but the ones I've got, I don't have that pretty leaf one, but I have a regular one. And I just keep dividing it out and from the clump and spreading it that way. Down below, forget-me-nots. That's the very common one. The wild one here there is a wild one, which looks like that, but there are cultivars that have been brought from Europe that are, they're about the same. They're white and pink ones as well, but they're not as common. And our violets, which you can find.
Those were native.
Oh, they are. But you can check these things. Anybody out there can check them. Trust me, I checked every one.
Kathy,
Yep.
Kathy, you know the pictures are a bit small on my screen, but the one you mentioned that was our wild ginger.
Yes.
It looks like a Brunera to me.
Sorry.
Yeah.
One called Jack. I think it's called Jack Frost. And I think it's a Brunera, is it not?
I've got one like a Jack Frost Brunera in our garden, and it does look like that. I just figured that it's a kind of wild ginger.
I'm pretty sure it's Brunera.
Because I can't.
Especially when you said that it gets the forget-me-not like flowers.
Yes.
Because that's what Brunera does. Wild ginger doesn't do that.
Okay.
If I could, I'd feel. The picture's a bit small, so
Well,
I don't
sure.
You don't see it better? I'd made it bigger.
Okay. Yeah. That's.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's Jack Frost Brunera.
Okay, I'll accept that it could be.
Okay.
Probably is. But all right, the leaves are the same shape. They're solid green, and it gets a little, yeah. All righty. Let's move up.
Ooh, native grasses.
Okay. Oops. All right. Now, good. We have lots of sweetgrass growing around here in very, I for a long time just thought it was something quite special and exotic. And when it was picked by native people and they braided it, and it smells great. In fact, as far as I can tell, until you pick it, it doesn't seem to have an aroma. It's like that breaks it out to have an aroma. And I tried to get a picture where you could see the heads of it quite well, but it doesn't grow very tall, not knee high or around in there. I guess it depends on the knee. But if you know what it looks like, you could find it quite easily on even on quite sort of open wayside areas that are not good soil particularly, it seems pretty tough. But it also grows in, good soil in meadows and things. Wild rye, which is a beautiful plant. And it's often that bluey green, and in the fall it gets to be like more reddish. It's really quite a nice plant. And you see it's got those sort of furry tops. But these are things you can grow, clumps of them in your garden. You don't have to have like a field of it. And they make really nice clumps. And down below, the prairie drop seed, which it's so soft and it looks like a beetle's haircut, sort of. And they're lovely in clumps. And those are seeds you can certainly access now as heritage seeds. And they'll grow in very dry places, hot and dry, and they don't need excellent soil. And big blue stem, the same thing. If you want a nice big clump of grass, that's a dandy one. It's very tall, it's shoulder height easily. A plant that's sort of moving our way, the Phragmites, which is also very pretty, but very invasive, and it's in wet areas. Now I know of 2 spots here where it's growing along ditches. And that's sort of, as our weather changes, or people are still digging it up and taking it to their gardens. People in the north, because we don't know what a big problem it has become in the south. And certainly they cut along the roadsides there, and they're using poison on the cutters. One of my sons has been working with that in Lambton County to try to curtail it. And that's the Phragmites is just when it has an enormous clump like the size of your head is what the root ball is, and it's just hard to get out. Anyway, you just have to be careful what we bring home, I think. Okay, goldenrod, which we all probably know that one, and a lot of people say they're allergic to it, but according to science, it's actually not goldenrod that we're allergic to. What's the weed? I can't remember its name. Wonderful. Anyway, the 110 refers to the number of species that goldenrod supports. And that's species of insects. Sometimes it's the insect itself, it's their larva, it's the birds eating the seeds, just the butterflies that go to it. And I'm getting every once in a while, when I got statistics, and they're from an entomologist named Douglas Tallamy. And he's had his students, his master's and his PhD students doing research, and he's collected research from them and from other people. So his book is quite amazing. Ragweed, that's the one that gives its pollen off at the same time. And goldenrod pollen is really heavy, and it doesn't float around in the air. So it's actually innocent, but it's considered guilty. The pollen just falls down because it's quite heavy. Anyway, and if you think you're allergic to it, try looking it up online, because there's an awful lot there that supports what I've just said. I'm not allergic to it, so I'm happily growing it. There are different types, and some of them are shoulder high and some of them are much smaller. And there are a lot of cultivars made from that too. So we've taken them and chosen small ones and ones that grow very straight. And, we love to manipulate nature. Black-eyed Susans, you see patches of those here and there. They'll grow in a very dry, rough area too. So if you have a terrible soil, you can almost for sure grow these guys. And they're very easy to start from seed. And I suppose you can find plants, but the seeds are very easy to grow. I've got good sized patches of those just done
The
from
library
seed.
has some too.
Oh, yes.
Mhm.
The seed library, you really have to get to South Porcupine to the seed library because there are thousands now, and I'm not kidding.
Nope.
Packages, and I'm not exaggerating. I mean, packages of seeds there, and they're vegetables and, well, flowers, perennials, annuals.
And we're working towards, I don't know if you know this, Catherine, but we are working towards getting more of these native plants in the seed library so that we can sustain more of our environment and our bees and our food here.
Yes,
So it's a goal of mine to try to get that.
that's good. You're reading the right books, Louise.
Oh, I've been influenced by the right people.
Well, okay, let's go to see a little lower. Okay, I like Jerusalem artichokes. They're so easy to grow, and I've got those, and they move out of my yard. They're in my neighbor's yard. I've traded thistles for Jerusalem artichokes, I think. Anyhow, and interesting to me, this is something that we exported, or the people bringing the settlers took back Jerusalem artichokes to Europe and Britain. And apparently they caused something of a problem there. But certainly our farmers in the South, and particularly in Quebec, I know a farmer in the area of Montreal who's growing these, and they're wonderful. He's getting the roots, which are sort of, they're a tuber anyway.
And they're edible. Right?
Yeah, they're edible. So he's growing them as a crop, a market crop, and he just leaves enough. Well, he can't get them all. Like any bit of root that stays, next year his field is coming up with these artichokes. So it's a great crop for him because I don't know how long that's going to carry on, but maybe just indefinitely. A few years now, he's not had to replant. He just harvests and then harvests. And they look very nice. They grow up 5 feet tall in my garden, and all they get is sunlight, really. I never fertilize anything, really. I just use compost that I'm growing or making. And you can get your garden to do that with various ways of dealing with things. Mm-hmm. Okay, over to the common milkweed. I saw Mark was on here. He Mark Jerome managed to provide us with seeds at the seed library for the common milkweed. And boy, oh boy, we were trying to get the butterfly corridor to come north, and we've done that. I guess that must be about 5 years ago, maybe, or maybe even more. And we had everybody planting milkweed. And some of us, we didn't realize that they had to be stratified at first, but we soon got onto that. They all grew the next year, like a following year. But I've got one terrific plant, and the butterflies find their way to it. And the man that I mentioned, Douglas Talamy, somebody asked him, how did the butterflies find their own plant? Like a lot of them the butterflies are specific to certain plants. And we know that monarchs need milkweed for their larvae to eat and grow. And he said, when you see a butterfly flitting around, it's caught a scent in the air. And when it gets out of the track of that scent, it flits back. And I think that's so wonderful. And it so explains those erratic butterflies, because they're finding their way to what they need. And this is, well, it's called a common milkweed. There's a swamp milkweed, and there's one that's like just a butterfly weed. And they're all slightly different. The butterfly weed has orange flowers, so it's more different, and its leaves are spiky. But they all work the same way, and the butterfly finds mine, and I'm so excited when I see those larvae start, and they can eat so much. And they start off, the egg is tiny, like I've never even seen the egg on there. And suddenly
Yeah.
there's,
It almost looks like a little pepper grind, like
Yeah.
a ground pepper though, not the actual pepper
Yeah.
seed. It's
Yeah.
super tiny.
well, you see this really tiny larva, and suddenly it takes it 3 or 4 days and it's as big as your thumb, and they're beautiful, black and yellow striped. And then they, when they've eaten your plant, but the plant comes back, they don't kill it. And then they drop off and find a place to hang and make their cocoon that's sort of sheltered from the rain or the wind and sun. And then you've got the butterflies, and they're just,
If you
whenever
haven't
you-
experienced that yet, it's quite amazing to watch.
I've managed to watch, I think about 3.
Yeah.
And my grandkids are watching them, and you can see through the chrysalis, you can start to see the butterfly in there, and it becomes translucent. It's like a really bright green, shiny green, the little cocoon. But then it gets to be going clear, and you can see the butterfly, and then it comes out and it can't fly at first. And it just unfolds itself, and as its wings get pumped up, the veins in the wings become sturdy because the fluid goes out into them, and then the butterfly can fly. So it's an amazing process. You know,
Yes.
it really helps you to learn to start liking larvae.
Mhm.
And now when I see them, I think, no, I'm not going to try to get you all off there and kill you. I'm going to take one with some of the leaves you're eating and see what you hatch into. But they bring the birds too.
It's true.
So yeah, rhubarb. See, I'm losing my way here because I get excited about something else. But I was rhubarb's another thing that we've had around since the dinosaurs, and I'm not, that's not speaking loosely. In Alberta, when our children were the right age, we had to go to the dinosaur parks when we were in that area. And there are rhubarb leaves. They grow them in the park too, but they're fossilized, which is
wow.
quite amazing. So that's a really tough plant. Talk about a heritage plant.
And I just learned that the how the leaves are poisonous to us, but they're good for the compost and for ground cover.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I cut or pull it all through the season, but the last couple of weeks I leave all the leaves. There's always some leaves, but I just let them go down, and they're feeding the plant. Like now that they're all crumpled down and flat, but I don't take them away, and then they've got the nutrients that plant needs right there. And it's also like a mulch, and anyway, it works really well. I was interested because I like horseradish. So I had to look that one up when I was supposed to be trying to get online. And it's not native, it's native to Asia, but it's an easy one to grow. And in your garden, rhubarb is great because it's this huge plant with nice big leaves. And I don't really know what it contributes other than we eat it. It does, if you let the flower come, then it stops producing the leaves. So I always take the flower off.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't really know how what's attracted to it. So I'm not 100% prepared. 98. And lupins, we've got those, lots of places in nature you see them.
They're pretty.
And I'm sure that they were also brought like to homes, and because they're often around old homesteads, but they are native to us. And asters, there's a beautiful, slightly maybe bluer than this one. It's called a New England Aster, but it grows here. We have white ones as well. Those are plants, if you can find them, you can either bring the seeds home in the fall, or if there are a lot of the plants and you know what they look like, you can get them, bring a couple in the spring and start them. They're nice, big, shoulder high. They're great with goldenrod. They grow in the same dry areas, and they're beautiful together in flocks, which we have. And there's a plant that looks like that called Dame's Rocket, which is not it, but quite like it, and not native.
How tall is that one?
Well, it's like 4 to 5 feet.
Yeah.
They're very healthy, and they spread, and they also seed. Like the clump will grow out, but the seeds will, if there's bare ground around them, you've got a lot of new phlox plants in the spring. A lot of the native plants that seed need to be stratified, like nature would do it, but if you buy the seeds, you have to look up and see if you need to refrigerate them for a while. The Rugosa Roses are beautiful, and
smell lovely.
Yeah, every garden should have those.
Mhm.
I go out with my morning drink, not yet, but when the roses are blooming, and often there's a bee, and rarely, but sometimes 2 curled up in the middle of that cup, and they sleep there. And I'm sure they must think like, this is heaven. You don't think that, but to be in that scent and just laying there, and it's just cute to see them. The first time I saw one, I thought it had died, but when I kind of nudged the rose, it, moved around, and they were just like quite big bumblebee sort of things.
Yep.
Yeah. And blueberries, most of us probably wouldn't bring those home because we've got, they're there in the bush and we go and pick them, but they're very good for pollination too. So I guess they're a good fruit if you want to bring them. I pick them all the time, but I've never brought any to the garden. They're all around our camp. High bush cranberries, I've got a tree of that, and it's a bush. It's not really a tree, but it's a good tall bush. Beautiful white lacy clusters of flowers, sort of like a umbrella shaped cluster in the spring, and eventually you get these edible berries. And if you don't pick them, the birds will, and the birds really like them after they've been frosted. I guess it makes them sweeter, and it makes the birds dizzy, I think. And,
are they, is that what you consider a choke cherry?
No.
No way.
No, that's different. The high bush cranberry has leaves that look a lot like a grape leaf,
Okay.
or well, like a maple leaf, perhaps.
Yep.
That you can't see them too well, but it's kind of a palm shaped, like 3 lobes on one leaf. Dogwood are very good for, don't really eat them, but they're great for pollinators, and they're great color in the winter. If you get the red ones are the native ones, but you can get ones that have been bred off them that are golden, and and they grow in wet places where you maybe can't get anything else growing, and then they'll take off and try to act invasive. Like you can see that thicket, it's almost like a little thug in there. Haskaps, later on you're going to tell me who's growing these. I have 3, and they're the earliest berries. They're ripe way ahead of blueberries, and they're easy to pick because my bushes are 3 different kinds, and they're 3 different heights, but they're nice, they are tasty. The birds are trying to get them ahead of me. It's when I know to go and pick them. And they're colored like blueberries, but they're sort of this oval shape. And the size of blueberries, maybe a little bit bigger. So, and they like wet feet. So you can grow those if you've got an area that are wet, it's wet. And mine started producing a few berries in the second year, and I've had them about 5 years now, and I get lots and lots of berries. And they're nice enough looking bush. You can see some of the little flowers there, the flower, but the insects, of course, go after them anyway. And then pussy willows, and the number 4, 5,
Uh-oh.
Willows that we have, they support that many different species of living creatures that aren't plants. And mostly because they come out and they put their pollen out so early that their food, their protein for a lot of little insects. And it sort of amazes me that there are even that many kinds of things that will go after them. But
Mhm.
it's
It's not your normal flower to be pollinated with.
no, you don't even think about that. But
No.
they're really busy, but other willows too. You know, we've got quite a few different kinds of willows. Willows always seem to like wet feet. All right, keep going. All right. So I focused on a little bit more. 4 native vines that we can find around here. And we, a little bit, yeah. Certainly, there's a person in Matheson who's growing hops for Full Beard Brewery, and she's doing really well with that. She's had them there a few years. She was going before the brewery. I don't know what she did with them in the beginning. The native grape is called a fox grape, and it's got, well, produces nicely, and it's a great vine to grow over an arbor. To get one of these, I would suggest that you try to purchase one, or you find somebody that has one and get a piece. It's quite easy to plant one of the stringers. I've got some. If you know where I live, it's too early yet, but you can get pieces from me. Like it's not doing anything. It hasn't come to life yet. Virginia creeper. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't do much, but the birds like them.
Mhm.
And I have another a grape called Valiant, and I use those grapes. They're quite considerably sweeter. These are they're pretty tart. Yeah. Virginia creeper, which that's another one that once you've got it, well, the hop is really hard to get rid of too. I've never tried to get rid of the grape, but and the hop has an interesting scent or aroma, which either you really like or you really dislike. And the Virginia creeper down there, that turns reddish in the fall, which can be quite pretty. And you know, it gets berries. Mine doesn't always get berries. Sometimes, I don't know, maybe the year isn't right or something. Maybe, I don't know, but maybe there's male and female, because one vine never gets berries. But it probably has more to, that isn't something I looked up, so I don't know. Well, anyway, you can bet I'll look it up now in a bit. And then the northern clematis, and that's also known as the Virgin's Bower, which is, I think, a really interesting name, and you know, lots of things come to mind. It's quite pretty.
Mhm.
And it'll grow into a good sized vine too. And that one you do see out in the bush, and probably don't even think it's a clematis, or don't, you know, in my head, clematis is sort of, you know, climbing purple thing. But this one is quite pretty. It's delicate. The flowers aren't huge. But
Pretty.
it's the mother of many clematis that we grow. And then the bee fact, which I couldn't resist. On City of Toronto, if you look up City of Toronto bee map, native bee map, they've collected all sorts of research, and the map is zoned out the way sort of like gardening zones are. It looks somewhat like that, but for our region, has 200 to 250 native bee species, which again is hard to imagine. Timmins has become a bee city, and I'm on that committee, and we're And so is Mark and Gloria, I see over there. And we're trying to, well, we're doing a bunch of things. We've got some native plant gardens going, not entirely native, like they're mixed, but we're trying to raise awareness of the need for pollinators. And that's, anyway, we've got lots of them to feed and lure in. And again, if you start looking into bees, you'll learn right away that honeybees aren't native, but of course they're kept for their honey. And the honeybees, the non-native bees, are the ones that swarm and live in groups, in colonies, where the native bees are almost all solitary bees, and some of them live in colonies, but the colony might be 4 or 5 bees. And generally they're not even able to sting. So inviting those onto your property isn't a safety issue at all, unless if you are a person that has a very bad allergy to a bee sting, then that's a whole different way of living. But the honeybees, wherever they're kept for crop pollination, they outcompete the native bees in the surrounding areas, and the native bees just disappear. And so beekeeping is to help people with their crops, with honey, but it isn't a conservation practice in any way. It's, it destroys the bee population in that area. Okay, you're so patient, all you lovely quiet people. We're almost done. Okay, the very best plant for pollinators and bringing birds and all those lovely creatures to your property is the Burr Oak or white oak. The family of oaks that we have that are native together support 534 species, which blows your mind. But that's also including birds that will live in there, squirrels, any creature. It's not just insects that comes and uses that tree in some way, maybe not even as its home, but uses things from the tree. And that is awesome. But Burr Oak is one that you can buy and grow here, because I have a pet Burr Oak that's at the Anglican Church. But I have a friend who has 2 big white oaks that are, he said he planted them in 1972 from 2 acorns that he got from New Liskeard, from their agricultural station anyway. And those are in Timmins, and they're just amazing trees. But you have to get started. If you have room, plant an oak soon. Anyway, then we have the mountain ash, which a lot of people have those in their yards. I see those. There's one in front of the library, not our library, but the Timmins Library. And they're beautiful trees with those big white clumps of flowers, which turn into the berries in lots of these trees in Newfoundland, and they call them the moose tree because the moose eat the berries. And I've made jam out of them, and it's, I don't know, it's a bit tart. So I've stopped. But the robins, when they're migrating in the fall, they come to my tree and they have a party and, stay overnight. I don't know when to go home. But the only time I see robins in a flock is when they're migrating, and they come in the, I don't know, end of September. Anyway, 150, and they're not all robins. Then white birch is really a wonderful supporting tree, which we can grow easily, and poplar, which isn't, well, birch and poplar, they don't have long lives as trees. But poplar is very easy to grow and a fast growing tree. It's like a weed. It seems to pop up as soon as an area has been cut or bulldozed or whatever. And you can see that the numbers I've included there, jack pine, which we have forests of that. White spruce, we've got other kinds of spruce. The number for the spruce is including black spruce and, sorry, I've talked too long. Okay, let's see some more, a little bit. Okay, the balsam fir and white cedar. And interestingly enough, a lot of us grow cedar and we trim those into hedges. And as long as you don't cut back to the dead wood, you can trim your cedar and it'll keep regrowing those green parts. So, okay, the last little bit. Move us up. Okay, and here's my plug for growing native plants, I guess, how we can help to put nature back to what it maybe was before we got here. A really good one is to shrink your lawn and grow other plants, a variety of plants. Biodiversity is a big word now, to have a variety of species. So you're feeding a variety of creatures in nature. Stop using pesticides if you haven't. They're so enticing, right? When you've got something that's bugging you, literally, but really try to learn to like some of the. It's hard to like when they're larvae crawling all over everything, but if you leave them there for a bit, the birds will find them, and suddenly your tree is swarming with, or your plant is swarming with little birds who are just having a feast. And I can just hear all those negative thoughts. You can remove light pollution. You can help not having so much light at night, because that brings in a lot of the moths especially. And they hit the light and fall down dead, but then there's the toads are down below saying, oh, yummy, look what's coming. There are motion sensor LED bulbs, which I discovered a few years ago. You don't have to have anything special. You just buy this bulb, which you screw in, and you can set them in different ways. They're a little bit more expensive, but they're not awful. Home Depot has them. And you can, you have a motion sensor. We used to have to do a special fixture, but you don't have to. Or if you don't want to do that, the best wavelengths are yellow and red for not attracting insects. So anyway, I haven't tried those as lights, but that's what I've read. And not cleaning up your garden, leaving the debris under your trees and in your garden. And I know we have this mindset that says we have to clean up. We can't leave the leaves down there under our trees on our lawn, but in fact we can. And they're putting themselves back in there. It's like cannibalism.
They're feeding their future young.
Yes, they are. Like what I said about the rhubarb, it's feeding itself on itself. And that can happen with all of our plants. So you can clean up less anyway. And you're also taking out like little creatures that might be sheltering in those. Mm-hmm. And then plant some of the species that you've just been looking at. And some plants are just so much better than others at supporting our local wild creatures. And we think we're at the top of the food chain. I'm not sure we are, but we do a lot of control of it now, and we really interfere with nature. So we can all try to do our best, at least in a small way. If you grow one good pollinator native plant in your garden, or a clump of them, you're on your way to helping. And probably most of us like birds and like to see those, but you have to have the things that the birds will eat if you're going to get them in there. And
you don't even have to feed them because you are.
yeah, well, you want a garden where you don't have to do much, really. But anyway, that's my spiel. And, it's my plug for native. And I really think that we are we can be the solution in our own little way. And anyway, so let's have comments. Let's see what you're growing.
So let's finish up with the presentation first. I just wanted
okay.
to let everybody know that the library is hosting a STEAM makerspace, so don't be shy. This is for adults as well. It's how to make your own seed tape. So you can come in or you can pick up a kit. You can just give us a call. We also, as Catherine was saying, we do have our seed library ready to go. You can go to our website and there's a tab at the top that says Seed Library. Go ahead and in there. You can apply for a membership and place your order at the same time. If you already have a membership, it's the same steps, but you're already in the system. That's all. So we've got a lot of seeds. We started the year off with more than 3,100 seeds. So it was more than 3,000 seeds. I'm working on putting together the Seed Library logo contest for the voting. Keep an eye out on our Facebook page so that you can vote for our new logo. We have a few really nice different logos that you guys can vote for. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't speak about the resources that the library has. We have a lot of gardening books. The library in South Porcupine probably has more than Timmins at this point, but that's okay, because that's what we do here. But don't forget too that if you're not a book person, I am, but especially with nonfiction, but if you're not, we also have two other services. So one is called Hoopla, and that one there is all of the books are always available. So if you find a good title there, you can read it today, you can read it again, a month from now. It's always available. On our Libby app, that one there, you'll have a lot more of the newer books that may already be out because the licensing, the copyright, they can only go out one at a time. So you might have to put a hold on, but it's well worth the wait. And our little motto for the seed library is borrow, grow, harvest, and share.